Wednesday, May 12th, 2021, Richmond Community Schools work session for the Board of Trustees. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have the reading of the mission and vision.
Mission statement is that Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
The vision statement of Richmond Community Schools is a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Do we have any public commentary?
No.
No commentary? All right, moving on to consent items. Mrs. O'Brien, would you like to handle those?
Yes. Tonight for consent items, we bring to you 3.01, the approval of the minutes, and 3.02, human resources with the addendum there at your seat.
Approve 3.01 and 3.02 with the addition of the addendum.
Motion by Brad Walton,
I'll second.
second by Jeff Schleifer. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to action items. Item 4.01, Curtis and Livers Consulting Agreement. Mrs. O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. Yes, tonight I bring to you, this is an annual agreement. It's the consulting agreement with Curtis and Livers, submitted for your consideration and approval.
I move that we approve the agreement.
Motion by Keith Morey,
I'll second it.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Action item 4.02, 2021-2022 Student Code of Conduct. Mrs. O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. Tonight I bring to you the Student Code of Conduct, and this will be for the 21-22 school year. There are no recommendations to the actual Code of Conduct. The changes are dates and names, but no changes to the content this year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I move that we approve the code of conduct for the students for 21-22.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second?
second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Item 4.03, Dreambox Learning Agreement. Mrs. O'Brien.
Thank you. Tonight I bring to you the attached agreement for Dreambox. It's a digital math program for grades K to 4. We currently use this program. It was funded out of the first round of CARES Act. It has proved useful at the building. The request was to be able to continue that. So with CARES Act 2 money, or ESSER 2 money, we're looking at a renewal for Dreambox online learning platform. And Mrs. Somcini's here in the office as well if you have any questions.
Happy to entertain a motion.
I will recommend that we approve the contract.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer,
I'll second.
second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments?
It's a,
one of the topics that we often discuss over the years is how do we measure the effectiveness of the different programs and the different stuff that we have. And we've talked about it a couple different times. So moving forward, I'd just like to make sure that we it would be nice to see how we're going to evaluate it and how do we know it's going to be effective, and so when it's renewed, or that time comes up, we know that whether we should keep the program or not. So I just hope that kind of thought's being put into that now, so.
And Mr. Suffer, I can tell you that on a monthly basis, we look at usage and growth. So usage of how many students are using the program in each of the elementary buildings and the growth that they're seeing. And there's a targeted growth rate of the number of lessons that we want to see students complete, which is between 5 and 15 per week. They could do that during breakfast in the classroom in the morning. They can do it during station time. They also can fit it in during their math block. And so I do look at that data on a monthly basis, and then we share that out with the principals, and then they have conversations. We did have buildings that had less use and less growth, and so we targeted those 2 buildings, and we've seen an increase since then. So we do monitor that regularly.
Good to know.
And I wanted to encourage Dawn and her team. I love the idea of the optional summer use. I thought that was a great idea, especially as we're looking at learning loss and remediation. This seems like a great way to be able to offset some of that. And the partnering with local businesses for incentives, I'm like, yay, let's.
If you have any ideas, let me know, please.
Yep.
We're working on that.
Thank you.
Keith, did you have something?
Well, I guess kind of along the same lines that Jeff had. How long, they've been using this for how long?
This school year, we started in August.
We started this August, okay. So are there, with any of the testing that we've done, are we seeing improvement?
Well, one of the new features that they're aligning is called Dreambox Predictive, and so we piloted that a little bit this year, but what it will do is align to standardized testing, which is, the idea is that we would better know going into testing how students are going to perform based on how they're performing on Dreambox. So that's something that is going to be new for teachers. The principals have had a little bit of experience with that just because, again, it was a pilot that Dreambox threw out to us the
Gotcha.
second semester. So I'm hoping that will also be another tool that we can use. It is grade level specific, so students are working at their grade level on specific skills, and then you can tie it to NWA. So if you have, we have 2 teachers in the district, one at Crestdale, and I'm trying to remember the second one that is piloting it, but basically you can go into Dreambox and put in the NWA RIT score, and so not only will it assign lessons at their grade level, but also based on how they performed on NWA. So just another way to kind of target what that student needs to be working on.
So it does talk to, they kind of understand each other, and they're trying to, okay.
And we started small with just the 2 teachers, because my only fear with that was that if a student didn't perform well on one given NWA assessment, you don't want to steer the, you know what I mean? So it's just, again, one other way of looking at how to target skills.
Cool. Thank you.
And I would just add, thank you. I know that's to Dawn and her team, because I know that's been a lot of work, and I'm anxious. I like what I see, so I have high hopes and expectations.
Absolutely, and I can definitely share in my board update, just kind of a preview of how things are going, so I'll do that to keep you all in the loop.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Item 4.04, acknowledgement of receipt of notice of resignation of RCS board member Suzanne Derengowski and declaration of a vacancy on the board. I guess that's mine. I have a letter physically in my hand from Wayne County Clerk of Court, Deborah Berry, saying that she has received a letter dated May 5th of this month from Mrs. Derengowski, and that her resignation will be effective Friday, May 7th. So we have received that. But I would like to see if I could get a motion that we declare vacancy on the RCS Board of School Trustees arising from the resignation of former member Suzanne Derengowski, effective as of Friday, May 7th, 2021.
Are we allowed to change the effective date to today?
That was not change, that was what you said.
I know. I'm just talking about,
Oh, you wanna-
what should we
you wanna extend
declare it? That gives us 5 more
I
days.
No, I looked at that, and it doesn't say day of receipt. But,
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, did he?
You're fine.
Motion by
I'm
Jeff
sorry, Keith.
Slifer.
He's been over
Okay.
there with his hand up.
Keith, who? Okay,
I can't
second
see
by
him.
Brad Walton. Any questions or comments? I know we'll discuss it a little more later.
Yeah.
Just repeating what we said last meeting, and thank you to Suzanne for years of service and big shoes to fill.
And I would say, if you're in District 3 and you're interested in playing a role, we want to hear from you. And if we don't, we might come out and come after you too. Or at least ask you if you're interested. You know, it's a little bit of work, but you know, if we hear people a lot, we see people come in and have issues and concerns. If you want to play a role and you're interested in making decisions that are in the best interest of the kids in the city of Richmond, I think this is a place where you can do that. If you want to see somebody hired as a coach or somebody fired as a teacher, don't bother, because that's not really what this is about. I think it's important to say that. This is not like, if you have an axe to grind or a certain thing that you think the school district should do, that's not really our purview in general. It's larger decisions. I think that's important for people to acknowledge coming into it. It's not, we have one person that we supervise as an employee, and that's it.
It is a great opportunity to serve and to have a
Absolutely,
voice.
for sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just that if you are interested, there's information on our webpage, correct? Including what you need to do to.
It's all explained.
Yep, it's all on the webpage if you want to give it a shot. The process for this is, it's basically an interview process by appointment, and that appointment would last until Suzanne's term would be concluded,
December
which will be,
2022.
no, it's a year and a half, isn't it?
December 31,
Yeah, December 31st of 2022, at which point, if you decide you want to continue, we would then need to, well, prior to that,
You'd have to run.
yeah, you would have to run to be reelected, correct.
Well, you've covered most of our work session for us. Thank you.
Did I? Oh,
We'll
There
cover
you
that
go.
again one more
We'll talk
time
about
just
it.
to make sure everybody's got it. But thank you,
you're welcome.
Keith. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to policy review and update. Item 5.01, policy 7810, display of the Ten Commandments, second reading and approval. We'd like to,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve 5.01, policy 7810, and 5.02, policy 7740 on to second reading and approval. Or on past second reading and approval.
is there a second for?
You want to bundle them both?
Yeah.
I didn't know if we wanted to talk about 7810.
Yeah, why don't we? I think
All right.
talk about 7810, the display of the Ten Commandments one.
So
Well, I'm asking because,
that's fine, we can talk
Yeah.
about, or whatever the preference of the board is. So if we could have a motion on item 7.01, the first policy, 7810.
I will motion that we approve 5.01, policy 7810, the display of the Ten Commandments.
If we can get a second. Second, Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
I guess my question would be, is it, I don't where did this, I don't know, what's the point? Is it just to say that we,
I can give you a little background on that.
Okay.
I should have done my homework. I'm eminently aware of the issues in this, since I was involved in litigation back whenever regarding the monolith at the courthouse. I'm thinking it was in the 50s in that area where many of those monoliths were donated to public organizations and displayed. They obviously have, as laws, as the interpretation of separation of powers changed over the years, and Oliver Wendell Holmes says the life of the law is experience, and if experience has changed, then those became viewed in and of themselves as problematic. However, the legislature apparently reacted to the case law that had been developing, and our policy 7810 essentially mirrors that legislation, and any proposed display that would be entertained on the school corporation property pursuant to that would have to be vetted first and approved by the board, and would have to meet those criteria that have been somewhat discreetly defined, emphasis on somewhat. You know, the devil's always in the details, no pun intended. But it needs to be part of, to be valid, the display, whatever format it takes, needs to be part of a general display that has pedagogical value, has the comparative religions, what have you, and can't call undue attention to any particular one such display. It doesn't necessarily have to cover all potential religions or faiths, but it needs to be broad-based enough to where it's not a endorsement of either directly or indirectly of any particular faith.
The way I read it, it doesn't seem to prohibit, nor does it seem to promote the Ten Commandments. Is that, I mean, would you say that's a
essentially
fair?
what the position has to be
Right.
on matters of that nature.
So, my question is, do we even need to have a policy?
I would have to go back and review 36-116, because this is maybe one where the legislature said thou shalt have the policy.
Okay.
I can get back to you if you want to hold it over, and then if, because the criteria that are indirectly incorporated, the legal criteria in the policy, where there would be a display, are going to exist whether you have that policy or not. So if you don't have to, I can let you know. If you'd like to hold it over to the next meeting, and I can get back to you with whether this is in fact a mandatory policy or discretionary, if that would be the pleasure of the board.
to the knowledge of anybody in the room, are they displayed anywhere now?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, I wouldn't be aware of anywhere that they were displayed.
I mean, we give a lot of latitude and independence to teachers
Sure.
to define their curriculum, but occasionally we have issues that arise, and when we do, we being the administration has to become involved. But I'm not aware of this is an issue anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's the, if you will, the backstory of why there is such a policy in the first instance. It was part of Neola, and because it's lifted right out of the statute, and I'm sure it's included in the ISBA's review of our policies. What I don't feel comfortable advising tonight is whether it's mandatory or discretionary. So
Yeah.
that's a factor to the majority of the board present. And consent of the motion in the second, you could agree to table this to the next meeting, whatever your pleasure.
So I guess the question is, are we comfortable having the policy regardless if it's a shall or a? I don't see what harm it. Or would we prefer to remove it if we are able?
Yeah, I guess I would have a hard time advising you not to have it if
Ron, it's
the
similar to
legislature says you have.
the policies, the courthouses have approved that, you know, any type of religion can put a display up or anything like that, correct?
Well, again, the answer to your question would have to be fact specific. You have to recall the Ten Commandments monolith that was placed on the lawn of the courthouse was donated, and it was the only thing. It was a standalone monument. There was nothing else around it, other than maybe a tank off to the right that's since been moved to Veterans Park as you face the entrance. So there are no, and I'm fairly confident there are no displays in place now in the courthouse or the courthouse annex. If you realize, I think the owner of Wayne Bank and Trust volunteered to allow the monolith to be relocated to the east on land owned by Wayne Bank and Trust, where it still is placed. And we had donations from local businesses to pay for the relocation and the pouring of the concrete slab for the relocated monolith, which is still there as far as I know. I believe so.
I'm personally fine with approving the policy. I think as a teacher, it says I'm allowed to have it. If I want to have it in my class, my religion class, then it's okay.
Well, it doesn't, I mean, I don't read it as it's just okay. I read it as if I want to have it in my class, it needs to be with other documents of historical significance from other religions.
And that would be the way any complaint, parental complaint about something that was going on in a classroom, that would be the way that the administration should investigate that
Right.
review.
Just like having
And that would
the
be
Bible
true
or the
whether or
Quran.
not you have this policy.
Right.
So, so it's the pleasure of the board. I don't know what the
So
consensus
it sounds
is.
like we're wanting to proceed with keeping the policy and moving it to the next. or passing.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to me to find out if it's necessary or, I don't know. It looks like it was adopted 2013. That's when it came in. Well-
Maybe, I'd have to look at the statute. My
That'd be one of those
my inclination tells me it's earlier than that.
Yeah. I guess for me, I just would wonder if it's even necessary. I don't, but that's kind of
And are you proposing that we table it until we find out? Is that?
I don't know. Based on the only feedback that I've gotten from it, it seemed like that would be it would be worth it. I mean, there's nothing
Pressing.
lost or gained
Right.
by doing it otherwise.
Well, this board said the pledge of allegiance before the meeting started. One nation under God. And why would you want to take away the 10 Commandments if you're still going to say the pledge of allegiance? You know, there is religious freedom in this country, and that includes not taking away our religious liberties in the process.
Sir, we can't have you interact in this way. I mean, I appreciate your viewpoint, but we had public commentary at the beginning. So if we can just limit your comments, if you'd like to come back at another meeting or talk to us
Or
individually
after,
afterward. I'm sorry, but to be fair to you and everyone else. So that said, I think we can pass it, and then if Ron says we don't need it, we can delete it down the road, or we can table it.
I'm fine with passing it.
But there's no rush either way. If you pass it now and then decide to delete it, that'll require 2 more hearings, but that's okay.
Okay, well, all right. So the preference is pass.
There's a motion and second on the table.
All right.
Wait, so what?
So we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to approve
it.
it on second reading.
Okay. Yep.
You okay with that, Keith?
I thought we were.
The movement and the second consented, is that what I understand?
I mean, the motion
we-
is to approve and pass.
I would have to rescind my motion if we wanted to table it, right? And I would keep my motion out there, or are you keeping your?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nicole, are you keeping your second out there? The vote?
Whichever way we want to go is fine. I think it needs to be clearly understood, however, that this policy is stating that 10 Commandments can be displayed, and if we keep that policy, they can be, along with
It's
others.
not saying they have to be.
but they don't have to be. If we don't have the policy, they would still be able to be displayed along with others. So either way, the 10 Commandments can be displayed.
That's correct.
Yes. So,
Within
right.
the historical
along with,
context.
right, historical context and along with other documents and objects of historical significance.
Correct.
So, just so the public understands that that's what we're looking at. All right, so which way are we going with it?
I'm still.
Sounds like it's standing.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approval and from second reading, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Item 7.02, Policy 7740, Bonding, second reading and approval. Like to entertain a motion?
Motion that we approve policy 7740.
Motion by Brad Walton,
I'll second.
second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Item 7.03, Policy 7660, Transportation, first reading. And I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll motion that we move policy 7660 to second reading.
I'll second.
Motion by Brad Walton, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Item 5.02, Policy 7760, Student Accident Insurance Removal, first reading. So this is a removal of this policy. Any, like to entertain a motion?
I will motion that we remove policy 7760, student accident insurance.
Motion by Brad Walton,
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for Jeff to second something. Go ahead.
I did. I missed the removal piece of it because I remember us asking the question about, do we do this now? Da, 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 da. It just went completely over my head, so.
discuss it in a minute, if we can get a second.
I'll second.
Second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
Yes. What is prompting this?
This policy came up as our normal review, and this is not something we do. So we do not, we have not offered student accident insurance. So it's,
I might note that if parents have questions, we do provide them with the name of our insurance carrier that they can look into it on their own. We do not provide them a specific policy. We do not provide them anything other than you're welcome to contact an insurance carrier of your choice. So we don't mandate that they participate. It's just if they ask questions.
And again, this is my fault because I remember us having this discussion in the beginning. But I'm assuming that we referenced the Indiana Code statute on this. The 5-4, the 20-26-5-4.
I think it enables you to, that's a general one, I'll have to take a look at it, but I think it enables you to, but the reality is, you really need to define, before you can get insurance, you need to define the risk that you're insuring. And the only awareness I have of any time this was offered in the past, this is the General Powers Act, it was in the context of co-curricular, usually sporting events, and it was a private purchase, and I don't know that it was really procured by us. I think we may have been an enabler, if you will, and through our athletic department. I don't believe that there is a policy that we've looked at that would involve the school corporation being the owner of a policy for the benefit of its students in whatever the factual environment and context might be. I mean, the reality is everybody in the school corporation has an obligation to themselves, the students, patrons, what have you, with whom they interact, to exercise reasonable care to see that you don't harm someone. That's a negligence standard. That's going to be there regardless, and we just simply cannot, and I think there's some times a misunderstanding that somehow the school corporation guarantees the physical and safety of their children while the children are in school, and that is not quite the case.
Well, that's what spurred the whole conversation in the beginning, because when we started discussing it, the first thing I asked we asked was, we provide this?
Well, I think it's a good question.
I mean, so, okay. Well, thanks for the clarification. I just missed the...
It sounds like this is something that is not happening
Right.
Right.
now.
Correct.
So, I don't know, to my mind, yeah, we should probably, if we're not doing it anyway, it should probably not be a policy.
We should not be saying we're going to do it if we're not doing it.
Correct.
So any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the work session. Give me a second.
You want Keith to handle this?
Right.
Maybe now we can talk about how you should read ahead and see what else will be covered in the work session.
You used to be a teacher that said read all the instructions first,
Yeah.
right?
So I'll go through the timeline quickly, and then we'll have some discussion if we'd like. So as previously stated, we have a board vacancy. We have added applications on our website. Those applications, we have state law says we have 30 days to fill that vacancy from the date of the effective date, so that's May 7th. So we have already put applications on the website. Those are due May 20th at noon, I believe that's a Thursday. We will then review those. We have an executive session actually the weekend, so on the 22nd. And then the following week, we would try to interview candidates. And then our plan is to appoint a new member by June 6th. So that's kind of the time frame. If anybody'd like to open it up to other members to add detail.
Well, I do have a couple of questions before Ron leaves.
So close, Ron.
Well, actually, two scenarios. One, what happens if we receive no applications? And then two, what happens if we receive only one and that one is not a favorable candidate? Are we required to choose that one?
You can reject all, and if you get no applications, then I think we have to basically then start the process over. I would then contact the judge of the circuit court, and I don't think he's all that anxious to appoint a member to the school board who hasn't had enough of a demonstration of interest to apply for a vacancy that has been out there for 30 days plus. So we just have to cross that. If you got one, you're still not required to accept that one. You can reject it. Any interviews you conduct, as you know, have to be done in public.
Right. So
if you got two, you could preliminarily screen one and interview one. If you got four, you could only, which makes no sense, but that's the way it's written, you could only narrow the field to three in the course of your executive session.
Because the other question I had is, we kind of did a reorganization when we had a member before retire because the number of applicants were limited. So And I hope we have plenty of applicants, I really do.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think.
we addressed the historical problem when Member Stidham retired, and that
Right.
had been, and it went back to the original reorganization plan in 50, whatever it was, 54, 5, or 6. When we brought in Boston Corporation and the township, we allotted a member of the board, a residential member, a district member, and that was problematic over the years. We had good board members from there, Mr. Stidham and Mr. Green, but there just wasn't a big demand. So we reconfigured that, 3 residential districts, and then our 4 at large. And hopefully we tried to, well, we didn't have to, we tried to get some semblance of balance in number of households at the time we did it.
And they were fairly balanced at the time we
At the time,
realigned.
it's a mobile society, so I don't know how they are now, but I guess I have to be optimistic and think that you'll have multiple applicants.
Well, part of the reason why I was asking that question was get to there was some consideration at that point of going to all out at-large seats, so we could have a greater pool. I'm not necessarily advocating right now that that's a direction that we want to go, but if we don't get applications,
That's something certainly we should think about.
and we have to go back and say, we're going to have to go through this process again, would it allow us in this time frame then to make that determination to go at large seats?
No.
So the time frame would
we
take,
can't-
for
we
that
can't-
charter, it would be too long of a
Oh,
process.
yeah, we have to go to the State Board of Education and file our amended plan. They have to vet it. We have to have a public notice of the publication of the plan, invite people.
Right.
to submit
Which we've done that twice.
counter
so.
proposals. We've done that twice. The most recent being to just take the little appendage.
How long does all that take?
Pardon?
How long does all that take?
Yeah.
8 months,
3 or 4
probably.
months, easy.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, we just did it, there was, for Ms. Morganson, there was a cutout
I don't
on
think we can switch it
22nd
mid-
Street, I believe.
Screen, though.
Pardon?
For Ms. Morganson, there was a cutout on 22nd Street.
Yeah,
That was,
We eliminated that. That
Oh,
was the
and
last
that's-
amendment we made.
Okay. I was just trying to get a handle of
That's
if.
step down first, probably.
So.
And I'd have to review the statute again, but I mean, but that would be the process. Yet another amendment to our plan.
Now worth asking?
And our plan is, once it was adopted during the Reorganizational Act in the 50s, I want to say, was never amended until Mr. Stidham's
We both have the same.
resignation, and then we did that first amendment to reconfigure our 3 residential districts. And then the second amendment was just to eliminate that
Little sliver.
that appendage that we
I
put in
will,
by
if you
design
want
at
to.
the time, so we didn't displace a sitting board member.
So Brad has brought an interesting twist. If no one applies, could I don't know, at the beginning of a meeting, submit my resignation?
No, you could easily, you don't have to resign, you can go ahead and apply.
Okay,
For
so if
District
I
3.
applied for District 3 because I live in District 3,
Right.
I could then, the rest of the board could appoint me, and then that would open up the pool to
At large.
an at-large
Or
position.
for a different vacancy, and would give
Or-
us another 30
Which would be
days.
my vacancy that was created when I took District 3.
That is totally possible.
Okay.
And actually, that's been
To
considered
keep,
before.
to keep that option open, you would need to have an application submitted, follow the rest of the rules that everybody else does.
Okay.
Because if there were other applicants, we could always choose not to.
Not to interview Keith.
We could, go
Pass me
ahead
right
and throw
up.
him out right away.
I can already tell you, I will vote against myself. But
But
if that
the
helps.
answer is that is a possibility. If
Okay.
you would like to be able to create more flexibility in the candidate pool
Mhm.
than presently exists without modifying your plan, that is certainly a
Okay.
lawful possibility. You cannot have dual office holding. You can't hold two dual lucrative positions.
Right.
No pun intended. You can argue how
So
lucrative this is.
lucrative.
But under the Constitution at the same time,
Huh.
but upon being appointed, you would then have to be deemed to have vacated and have to resign your existing office.
Because historically, most of the district seats, for some reason, have always been low, even at time of voting.
It's, people understand the work you have to put in to do it and do it right, and I think Keith's comments early in the meeting have rung true over my 40-some years, that, you know, single agenda board members don't always make the best board members if they have an extra grind or a coach to fire or hire, what have you. So that being said, I would say almost universally, my observations have been that every board member elected grows in the office as long as they're there, if they give any effort at all. And I think that's a compliment to the quality of board members we've had over the years. Plus, I think it speaks well for the gravity of the position that you would be seeking and your understanding of what it means to kids and to people and to our patrons and stakeholders. So you know, it's not to be taken lightly. I always quip that the only thing worse than being a school board member was being the spouse of a school board member. So. Any other questions? Because I do have another engagement I got to get to. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Thanks.
The one point I made in the email that you can talk about is, and I think you had the flexibility, if you get hit with 6 or 7 or 8 applications and you cut it down to 4, will you identify the 4 that you cut out in that round? You do not have to, and there are pros and cons for that, and I think I identified them in my memo. But that's something that I would think ought to be understood at the time a person applies, that if they apply and they're one of 8 and they get cut out, are they going to be identified publicly and as people that didn't make the first cut of the team or whatever you want to, however you want to. You can go either way. There's no legally mandated.
And I think as a past practice, which is not a word I like, I think we kept them quiet.
Other than the final 3.
Other than the final.
Or 2, you know, or however many, the finals that you took to interview.
And that interview process, we have to say publicly who we're interviewing, but that's not a public.
Yes, it is.
It is, okay. I couldn't remember if it was or not.
Now, the public doesn't have a right to participate.
Right.
The process is what you want it to be, but it has to be done in a public.
But I don't think, did anybody come to the last rounds?
And I think, you know, the challenges are, how are you going to do the interview? Are you going to allow
Evelyn was there.
the first person to be interviewed?
She's one of my little
be the
students.
guinea pig with the second and third?
Uh-huh.
People there are visiting. I don't think that's
Only
necessary.
Christian.
Yeah.
I think you can
Good
include
call.
all interviewees from interviews with the other, or at
She
least
voted for him.
until they've been interviewed. You know.
Uh-huh.
We can talk about those logistics, but it is a public process.
Yep. Okay. I couldn't remember the last time.
Having said that, I also, in my memos I sent you, if you recall, said that I do not consider a one-on-one contact with a board member to Joe Blow saying, hey, Joe, I really think you'd make a good board member. Right? Do you have any interest at all? Soliciting that type of interest when just a one-on-one contact, I don't think that's an interview.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what sometimes you have to do
Yeah.
to recruit, if you will, good people.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
thanks.
Sorry, but this should be the last one involved in this immediate project.
Well, so other than the fact that you work 40 hours a week, you're on a, no, just kidding.
Well, regarding time commitment, I went ahead and put a list together that I thought anybody interested would want to know, just kind of what the time commitments are. And I would say, hey, fill in the blanks here. But board meetings 2 times a month, obviously starting at 5:30, going to question mark. Typically, I would say around 2 hours. Does that seem about right? Okay. The second thing on the time commitment list that I put down was reading through your board updates prior to the board meeting. For me, it takes about an hour, and that's twice a month. Second thing, read through school board emails and respond to comments and concerns from community members. I said an average of 2 hours per week. Obviously, John, you're probably more on that than I am, but does that sound about right? About
Depending on the topic.
depending on the
Yeah.
yes.
Depends on the.
It could go from
Okay.
0 to.
Yeah, it could be 0 or it could be 4
I just
hours.
wanted to
yeah.
give an estimate for people. Working group meetings, and we encourage everybody who's a board member to be on a working group meeting. They last 1 to 2 hours, thereabouts, once a month. Does that seem about right?
Yeah.
Okay. Attend events such as graduation, honors and awards, celebration of excellence, etc. I said May is a busy month. Average would be 1 to 2 hours a month, except in May. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
All right. New board member orientation. Mine, I met 2 times for a total of about 6 or 7 hours. Does anyone, Jeff, I know you don't remember yours. Does that seem about
Yeah.
right? Okay. School board retreats, 2 to 3 times a year for about 8 hours each time. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
That's probably heavy, but
Okay.
up to now anyway, maybe.
Well, this past year, obviously, but-
Aspirational, yeah.
Aspirational, yes. And then school board conferences, again, with COVID, I have not gotten to get on
No.
in on this,
The
but,
state is a 2-day.
Okay.
And then national is a 4-day.
okay. And that's 2 times a year then, right?
The state's once a year, the national's once a year.
Right, so twice a year, you're doing a conference for 2 to 3 days.
It's not mandated you go to that,
Okay.
but it's,
Neither of them are mandated. I think we try pretty hard to get everybody to the national one because it seems to be pretty valuable, and it's a good opportunity for us to
it's a great.
get to know each other and,
Right.
Experience.
yeah.
Okay.
I
And-
think typically 1 or 2 folks maybe go to the state one. Is that accurate?
Okay. Those are the only things I had. What other time commitments should we be telling
I
people
think for
about?
me, I think there's just research and reading and thinking about, because I like to settle things in. I'd say if you allocate any less than 5 hours a week, you're probably.
And that's what I was putting under read through school board emails, average of, and I said average of 2 hours per week, but yeah, just knowing that there's a lot of thought and research that goes
And
into
their,
it.
and their meetings are all throughout the day.
Yeah. General practices, we try to keep our Wednesdays open, period.
Mhm.
So even if, we meet on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month, we still try to keep the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays open in case we have to have executive meetings or anything like that. Some of the things that, there is a slight monetary incentive to be on the board. Roughly breaks out to about $2,900 a year. Also, there is the eligibility for insurance, but it is not free. If you elect to be on the insurance, you are the same insurance as a school employee, but you will have to pay for it, and basically, it's almost a wash with the $2,900 a year. It kind of balances out, so.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I would just add there's a lot of educational opportunities. Our state association has lots of programs. We get daily emails on legislation. I'm kind of a podcast guy, so I have a couple podcasts that I listen to, kind of try to keep me. But we all, be it books or I think we all have different formats to kind of, enrich ourselves so we can do the best job we can. But that also takes a lot of time, and so it kind of comes and goes. But I would just, you can't be in the job and be really sedentary. You've got to kind of, especially this past year, there's just been, virtual and just lots to try to keep up with.
I think it takes about a year to even 2 to totally understand what it is to be a board member, what's all involved and everything. So if you're elected on a 4-year cycle, the first 2 years of that is kind of getting brought up to speed and figuring it out, to where this is a great opportunity to be in a 1.5-year appointment, to where you can learn really quickly whether or not this is something you will enjoy, to where it's only half the commitment of a normal term, but it could tell you, hey, I don't want this, or hey, I really like this. And you would spend that time kind of coming up to speed, which would make you a much more powerful candidate during the general election.
Yeah, which is, I mean, you would run again in November of 2022 to retain your seat. And the elections, I find them, I mean, fairly energizing. You actually talk to a lot more people than normal, which maybe is good or bad, but I think it's kind of, you're putting yourself out there, and it's a unique and valuable experience that I think people, I'm not going to say it's enjoyable, but it's something I'm glad I've gone through two now, and each one was very different, but I think helped me be a better board member by going through that process. Now that we've really sold boardsmanship.
Well, I do want to encourage interested persons that we do have things to support you, such as, orientation. We're not expecting you to just come in and know everything. It, like Brad was alluding, it takes a year and a half, 2 years. It's a gradual growth thing, so it's doable.
It's been very rewarding.
I also think it's worth mentioning again, like Ron said, if you have specific questions, maybe don't send them to everybody, but one person, choose anybody that you're comfortable with, and just say, hey, what's involved here? If you have specific questions, just ask. I think any of us are open to having conversations about that.
I think all our paths were different. I was a fairly involved parent. With Dr. Borf was our superintendent when I was an involved parent, and that kind of led, although I think in some ways I had more, for the issues that were near and dear to me, I was almost in some ways more effective as a parent that was highly involved, because I could drive home that point. Whereas now as a board member, I have to step back and consider all points of views, and while I try to do the best I can, but I think having that transition from, it'd be nice if someone that's already involved in the schools, I think that's a nice transition to being on the board. And all our paths are different, but I really enjoy how I came to be here. So, anything else? Plus, we're a fun group.
Each one of us what Jennifer's bell ringers are and stuff like that.
No, I was going to defer.
All right, so moving on
You come up with some.
to preview of upcoming
Got
meeting.
board reports and old business.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Item 7, board reports and old business.
Okay, moving on.
All right. Now, preview of upcoming meetings and events.
All right, our next board meeting will be held on Wednesday, May the 26th at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Tomorrow is the Boston Run, and that will be at Cresta Elementary in the morning, and races will be broadcast live on Facebook. We will also be hosting a bus driver job fair. That's going to be on Monday, May the 17th from 8:30 to 3:30, and that will be here in the administration building. Coming up at the high school, we have Career Education Awards on Wednesday, May 19th, and Honors and Awards coming up Friday, May 21st, as well as Prom is coming up this weekend.
The real one, right?
The real one.
Richmond High School Prom. Thank you. Item 9, adjournment and bell ringer.
We have just a couple congratulations. We want to congratulate Principal Carrie Ann Polk-Meek from Test. She received the Indiana Association of School Principals Middle School Principal of the Year for District 6. And also congratulations to Mrs. Stephanie Baker. She received the Indiana Association of School Assistant Principal, or Principals. She's the Assistant Principal of the Year for District 6. Also, Mrs. Karen Scalf was chosen as the 2020 Region 6 School Business Official of the Year. and her official plaque arrived this week. So
Look at
congratulations
that.
to Mrs. Scout.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're
to them.
racking them up.
Thanks.
That's,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's good to be part of District 6.
Yeah.
Stephanie was also administrator?
Yep.
Co-administrator.
She and Josh Ames.
Josh Amicksworth.
So, she's had, and those two have been amazing this past year, I will say. It's been really incredible just to watch them work. So, anything else?
That's it.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
Kudos to all the award winners.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
All right. Call us adjourned.
Good.